Hello my friends, I'm now going to start making my first horizontal beehive. The wood I'm cutting up is actually roof rafters, and they don't have to be a specific length. You'll see in further steps why. And the reason I'm cutting things into smaller lengths is wood tends to warp if they're in long lengths, and by cutting them shorter I'll prevent that problem or mitigate that problem to a large extent. Okay, so that's how I cut the rafters into shorter lengths. Okay, now we're going to do the second stage, which is getting one flat surface on the wood and a square angle. Here you can now see that this was a warped piece of wood, and we've actually got it flat now on the jointer. Now the aim is just to get one square angle on it. And there we've got our square angle. Okay, that's now how we use the jointer to get the warp out of the one side of the wood and to get one square angle. Okay, now we're at the third stage of our beehive build. We're now going to cut the second side corner square and also get all our pieces of wood the same width. Okay, let's start off with getting our height adjusted correctly on the blade. Okay, that should be high enough. Let's get the width set. will help if you plug it in. Eh? Okay, so there we have one flat side now, the square side that we did on the planer, and now this side and that side is parallel, and all our wood will be the same width. We're not concerned about the height at this point, that will come at a later stage. Now it's time to cut the grooves to join the planks together. I unfortunately didn't have a tongue and groove, but I've got a very similar cut. I'll show you the pattern when I'm done. What the pattern looks like on the one side. Once I've cut the other side, I will show you what that pattern looks like and how they fit together. One thing I just need to stress as well, when you work with dangerous tools, be very cautious, because the finger goes very quickly. We're now going to change the cutter knives so that we can do the other side of the joints. I'm busy here. A joke I've heard before is the engineer that got called out to a fault at a factory, and he looked at the fault and he just gave the one component a small clout with a hammer. He then gave his invoice for his work done, and the customer immediately complained and he said, you know, you're charging me 1,050 rand for one clout with a hammer. It doesn't seem fair. And the engineer politely told him 50 rand is for clouting with the hammer. The 1,000 rand is for knowing where to clout. Another piece of useless information, I assume. When you install cut heads, just always make sure they're nice and tight. You don't want one of these things jumping out at you at 13,000 RPM. I doubt even if wearing safety glasses would prevent you from getting hurt when that happens. But whenever you work, if you feel the need, use your safety glasses. Me personally, the only reason I don't really use them when I think it's not necessary is they seem to obstruct my vision too much. But that does not say you shouldn't wear them. Yeah, there we've got quite a nice joint. I would have preferred a tongue and groove, but this will look quite nice on the outside of the hive too. What we'll be doing today is to glue the panels together. I'm only going to video one panel, the rest will all be the same, so you can work off the one. Okay, and the end there, if they're not all the same length, it's not an issue. We'll sort that out once the panel is glued and finished. Okay, and the last row I'm putting in is only grooved and it doesn't have the tongue on the other side. Okay, now it's just a matter of tightening up and waiting for the glue to dry. This part we're going to cut the sides for the hive with the panels that we've glued together. At the end of the video I will give you how I got to the measurements I use. I use this AccuCut system. They're readily available at most hardware stores, and it really makes your life a lot easier when it comes to cutting straight lines with a circular saw. Okay, and the easy part now, you just take the AccuCut and you put it on the line, and what's nice is once you run it with the circular saw, it will cut exactly on the line next to the plastic guard. As easy as that. Okay, now our first one is going to be 490 millimeters. One of the sides. And I assume I don't have to tell you, a sharp pencil always works better. Okay, there's our first panel cut. That's for one of the sides. And now why I just chose this measurement, because the top of my frame will just fit into it. So your measurements might change according to what your frames look like. The longer panel, the front and the back panels, I'm going to make 1.3 meters long. So it will be approximately a 30 frame hive. Okay, let's get started putting the sides together. The excess glue, you don't have to bother taking off, it doesn't poke the bees at all. And you also don't sand the inside, because they will fill it with propolis wherever they need to. Quite out the flame. I don't think you need a screw in every plank, but I don't think it will harm anything to make it slightly stronger. Okay, the other end I'll do exactly the same. Don't think I need to put that on the video. Okay, let's put the strip for the frame to hang on. Giving it a 15mm gap, so there will be a little bit of space left above the frame, not much. Okay, I'll do the same on the opposite side. Okay, let's cut the recess for the bottom board. Okay, we've got our grooves done. Let's put in the bottom board. Okay, my measurements ended up that it's slightly longer than what a plywood sheet is wide. So I ended up having to make a little extra section for the end, which is something one could keep in mind for when you start your build. Maybe go that little bit shorter, that you don't need to add a little piece. What you'll see here is marked where I'm going to make my entrances. And the reason why I did that is in that area you don't want to put nails, because the router bit won't like the nails. Okay, bottom board in. Okay, and now we'll be cutting the slots for the entrances. We've marked them so we know where our screws are, or our nails. Let me just get my depth set right, or the height, whatever you want to call it. Okay. And there we go. Okay, and there our entrance is cut. I've got two more to cut, and the vents I've already cut at the top. Catch you in the next one. We'll be attaching the legs, putting some Coke bottles on the bottoms to protect it against some water damage. Hope you enjoy. For the legs we need 2 pieces of 550mm and 4 pieces of 700mm. Just cut the ends nice and square. Nice thing about this Bosch compound miter saw is that it's got these lasers that shows you exactly where the blade will run. So it makes measuring or marking, you don't need to have a lot of hassles with that. It's quick and easy. Okay, 700. Now we're going to cut some rebates into the timber for the legs. To get the adjustment for the height, we just have to flip this so that the stopper prevents the blade from going all the way down. These spaces are so that the center of the blade can go to the end of the timber. Okay, that's the first rebate cut. I'm now going to proceed in doing all the rebates and then we'll carry on with assembly. Let's get the legs assembled and onto the cabinet or box. Go. This needs to go in a little bit more. Square. Good. And I think 2 screws per side will be enough, because all the weight will be carried by our cross brace. Okay, now I'll just do the same with the other side. Now let's get some waxel painted on the legs. We've got the waxel on legs now. Now we're going to take cool drink bottles, put them over the legs, because that's the part that will get the most water damage, and with the heat gun we'll just shrink them on. Okay, I'll do the rest and then I'll be back for the next part. With the hive turned around, I'm now adding some silicone into the legs, into the cool drink bottles, just to try and give it that extra bit of protection. As the legs is usually the first thing to get water damaged. Okay, filled up with silicone. Let's shrink this last bit. And there we go. Now I'll do the rest the same, and then we're done with the legs.
Now we'll be doing the lid for the canopy, for the box. And I've cut these so that there's just enough overhang for the sides to go in on both sides. And we're going to now mark and cut a slope so that we can have a slope from the front to the back, so that if any water lands on the roof, it will run off the back of the hive and not the front, where it will bother the bees. Okay, and this will also now be the first time I use my new mic, so I hope the sound quality is a bit better, especially when I'm not looking at the camera. Okay, now all we need is a pencil. Okay, and let's just sharpen the pencil a bit quickly. Nice and sharp. Okay. Don't think we need too much of a slope, so I think if we make the back 80R and then 90 on the front side. And then let's go 100 on the front. That will still give us enough to cut the slope. Yeah, there we go. That looks like enough of a slope. Let me cut the others. Okay, let's mark our front and our back timber. Okay, now for this we're going to have to set the blade at an angle on the table saw. Okay, with all the pieces cut, all our slopes to our liking, let's start putting these things together. I hope the sound is better. So I did have some complaints before I started using, and that's actually why I got the mics. As people said, when I look away from the camera, they can't hear me. And don't worry, all these screws I drop, I do pick up later on. There we go. I'll do all the corners the same way. Okay, now let's add another 2 strips just to give the top some more rigidity. Okay, that part's done. Okay, let's get the top on here. The wood that I'm using here comes from old crates. But you'll see in the next step, the looks doesn't really matter here. That will all be hidden away. There we go. Okay, let's start stapling. The stuff that I bought to put over the timber to seal the top is ABE torch on 4mm. First time I've ever used it, so let's see how it goes. put some insect screening over the ventilation holes at the top end of the hive. I'm just going to cut some slots into this thin plywood to put over the screening, so I've got something to staple it with. Okay, let's staple the rest of the screening in. The screen wire, you can buy it almost any hardware shop. It's what they use for screening on security doors and stuff for insects. It should be readily available. The reason I'm putting this 3-ply right through is so that I can cut the shape into my follower board, so that I don't have gaps where I don't have plywood. Okay, screening board in.